today we have a really exciting presentation by Alisa Petersen on how to stay connected through using creativity. Alisa Petersen is the Beverley Taylor Sorenson Endowed Chair of Elementary Arts at Southern Utah University. As the director of the Arts Fusion Outreach Program at SUU, Alisa combines her passions for the arts, creative exploration, and the maker movement to coordinate, develop, and teach art-integrated learning activities for children and pre-service and practicing elementary school teachers. Alisa, thank you so much for joining us today. What do you have for us?
Today I'm going to talk about how we can maintain connection with other people, people that we don't live with necessarily, through creative activities. And I'm going to share my screen with you and show you a presentation all about creativity. So what I found when we had to start staying home and my kids were staying home from school is that immediately they felt cut off from their friends. My husband and I felt cut off from the people that we worked with. We see each other online through meetings and they could see their friends through classes, but it's not the same thing as interacting daily and having these positive interactions daily. And so I really started to think about how we could use creativity and the arts to stay connected. And what I found was that amazing things started happening online. Just so many things out in the world. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what kind of things that you can do. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about what creativity is. So in the last 10 years or so, there have been a lot of really great studies about how creativity is really helpful and can benefit us. And so one thing it can do is reduce our stress responses. I saw a presentation by an art therapist. She talked to the Utah art educators at our Art Education Association conference last year, and she talked about a study that she participated in where the participants in the study would go in for art therapy, and before they did, they would test their cortisol levels. Then they would participate in about a 45-minute creative activity, and at the end they would test their levels again, and they found that in all cases they would drop during that creative activity. And so they were reducing their physical stress responses just by doing something creative. And what she said was interesting is that it didn't have to be good. They didn't have to be talented or experts or really skilled. It was just doing something creative, reduce the stress that was in their body. Creativity can also increase your immune system, which is amazing. It can decrease your depressive symptoms, boost brain function, increase your positive emotions. It can alleviate anxiety, prevent disease, reduce dementia, and promote healing. And I think all of these things are things that we really want to have for ourselves, especially during a pandemic. And so this is another really specific study. And I think my quote's covered. Let me move that real quick. This study was called Everyday Creativity Activity, or Creative Activity as Path to Flourishing. And this was published in the Journal of Positive Psychology in 2018. And in this study, about 700 or 800 people participated, and they kept really detailed journals, daily journals, about what their activities were throughout the day and what their emotions and their energy levels were like every single day. And what they found was that without fail, people who engaged in something creative felt better the next day. In fact, they felt significantly more energetic, enthusiastic, and excited the next day just by doing something creative the day before. And they actually use the word flourish. People who were creative tended to flourish on the next day. And I love this quote that was in the article they published. It said, "This finding suggests a particular kind of upward spiral for well-being and creativity. Engaging in creative behavior leads to increases in well-being the next day, and this increased well-being is likely to facilitate creative activity on the same day." So if you do something creative, you feel great the next day. Feeling better helps you want to do more creative things, and then that helps you feel better the next day, and it can just keep going and keep going. They said that these findings suggest that you can actually use creative activity as an intervention for someone who is feeling down or feeling depressed. It can be one of the things that can help them rise out of that a little bit. So let's talk about what is creativity. In the article, they said it is coming up with novel or original ideas. So that's having a new idea. And I find that a lot of my students at SUU, I teach in the College of Education, they are always afraid that they are not creative because they feel like they aren't having these great big new ideas. And a lot of people talk about big C, or creativity with a capital C. And that's when you have a brand new idea that's new for the whole world, something that's really going to make a change in the world. But what's important to know is that little c, or creativity with a lowercase c, is just as important as the big C. Little c is when you have an idea that's new for you. You can see this a lot in children as they're learning and experiencing new creative things. They will have an idea that's old and it's not new and you've known it forever, but for that child, it's a real aha moment. And when you're doing this creativity on a small scale with new ideas for yourself, that's really important. And so having new ideas, expressing yourself in an original and useful way, or spending time doing artistic activities like art, music, painting, and writing. So I have a list here of a lot of different creative activities that I could think of. And I know there are tons more. So some examples are woodworking or baking, quilting, playing an instrument, drumming, writing poetry, singing, storytelling, drawing, gardening. The list can go on and on and on. If you think of the definition of doing something that is new, where you're having new ideas, and I think you're putting those new ideas to work, then you're doing something creative. So I want you to think for yourself, what creative activities do you like? Or what creative activity have you wanted to try that you haven't let yourself try yet? Okay, so here's something I wanted to show you. Do you think that this picture we're seeing right here is creative? This is something that you'll find all over the internet, things like this, where this was obviously done in an elementary classroom, and every single child drew and painted the exact same picture. This is called a guided art activity, where the teacher says, okay, put a big circle in the middle of your page, and now a smaller circle inside of that, and a smaller circle inside of that, and you go step by step following the directions. So is it creative if you're following directions? I'm going to say it's complicated. If you were to make this polar bear painting, that might be brand new for you, but you're following instructions rather than having your own ideas. And I find when I kind of see people on social media or talk to my family members and they're trying activities like this that feel creative because it's an art project, but they find that they're coming away more frustrated than they were before they started, or feeling negative feelings, or feelings of comparing their work to somebody else's work, or they have their children do a project and the kids just get mad. I know my son, for example, if he watched a video online of how to do an art project, he just would melt down if his wasn't exactly the same. And so I'm going to say that this isn't the kind of creativity we're talking about. I have a list of ideas that I always share with my students here at SUU about how can you tell if your creative activity is high quality? How can you tell if it's the right kind of thing that you should spend your time on to get all of those positive benefits that we just talked about a minute ago? And so here's the list. You can kind of go through these one by one when you're doing something yourself that's creative, and use it as a checklist, but also you can use it as a way to maybe improve or change your activities to make them better. So the first one, a high quality creative activity is open-ended. So you can ask the question, must your creation match an example, or are you able to make your own choices? So if we think back to the polar bear activity, those kids who made those, they didn't really make their own choices. The color palette was chosen, the size and the shape of the bear was chosen. A lot of teachers would say, oh, but they're darling because they all look slightly different. If I go back, they do all look slightly different. But that comes to skill and talent rather than choices or expression or ideas. So since the internet and Pinterest is full of really fun, cool looking activities where you follow the directions step by step by step, do we need to throw all of those out the window? My answer is no. But if I were to do this project with my own child, I would say, okay, let's watch the video. Let's see how they made this polar bear. And let's think about what we want to take from that for our project and how we want to change it, or what we want to add, what we want to do differently. So can yours have your own choices, or does it really need to match? That's one question you can ask. The next thing is a high quality creative activity subtly balances process and product. So the time that you're spending creating is just as important as what you create. I have gardening on the list of creative activities, and I used to hate gardening and all kinds of yard work because I wanted beautiful flowers, a beautiful yard, and I really didn't want to spend the time making it happen. So for me, that wasn't a great creative activity. And I'm slowly starting to learn that I can really enjoy the whole process, not just look forward to the product. Both things are important. And if you found that kind of thing where you can enjoy the process and the thing at the end, then you're doing something that's a healthy, high quality creative activity. Okay, the next one, a high quality creative activity allows you to be personally expressive. So do you have an opportunity to say something or to put your own voice into what you're doing? The next one, a high quality creative activity allows for discovery and experimentation. So the same thing with the polar bear. If I have to put a circle in the exact right place and use the materials just the way I'm told, I don't really get to do that experimenting. But if I can explore and make mistakes and try again, that's the exact kind of healthy creativity that happened in the study about cortisol. If someone's just experimenting, exploring, and coming to the point where they can make something that they're proud of, all of that time is healthy, the time that you're spending doing that experimentation. Okay, a high quality creative activity is intrinsically motivating. Do you want to do it? Does it interest you? So sometimes you might find something out there in the world that you think, I should probably try that. And it sort of feels like drudgery and you're not enjoying it. You're not going to get those healthy creative benefits. Pick something that you like. And if you're a parent working with a child, this one can be tricky because you might pick something that's interesting to you and not at all to your child. And so you want to work together to find something that they want to do that really interests them. So I was an elementary school art teacher, and kind of a few months before I started teaching, I was creating artwork with my 4-year-old daughter, and it was horrible. We were doing a painting project, and I was mad and she was mad and it was frustrating, and by the end I gave up and left and just let her do what she wanted. And I was keeping a blog at that time, and I wrote a blog post that said, here's my admission, I'm going to be an elementary art teacher and I hate painting with my daughter. It's horrible. And I realized that the reason why is because I wanted her to do what I was interested in, and I wanted what she created to look like my vision rather than her vision. So if you're working with somebody else, make sure that it's something that they want to do, not just something that you want to do, because that's going to help them have those positive feelings. Okay. Is it success oriented? And this one seems a little bit funny, but you need to think, does the activity match your skill level? Now we know it's important to have your reach, I can't remember the words, try to reach farther than where you can grasp now and always be trying to do more. But you have to be careful not to pick something really far past your skill level, or you're setting yourself up for failure, and not the good kind of failure, but the kind that feels pretty bad. All of those Pinterest fails. I love to bake, and I like decorating cupcakes, but I know that I can't make a wedding cake. And if I said, okay, I love baking, I'm going to make this amazing wedding cake, I wouldn't have a good and positive experience, but I can work myself up to that point little by little. So when you pick a creative activity, pick something that you know you can do or that's just past your skill level so that you can be improving, but don't pick something that's going to be really too far. The same thing is true for children. You may not know what a child can do or what their skill level is. If you have a child that you really want to do something creative with, it's worth your time to look up online what can I expect from a child of my age, and make sure that you're not pushing them too far. So I have an example. When I just started teaching, I was working with second graders, and I wanted them to paint these paintings of animals. and they couldn't, and they were terrible, and they were mad, and they were frustrated, and it was dragging on too long, and we had to quit the project. And the reason was because I picked something that was harder than what they should have been able to do. Now, second graders can paint animals, but the way I was asking them to do it was beyond their level. So try to fit something that is the right skill level. And then the next thing is, do you have what you need to succeed? Make sure that you're working with what you have. And right now, with our social distancing, I'm not going to recommend that you run out to the store and buy all the supplies that you want for the projects that you'd like to do. Try to figure out something that can work with the supplies that you have on hand. Okay, a high quality creative activity makes connections. This is one of my favorite ones. As you're doing something creative, see if it can help you learn about other times or cultures or places or areas of interest that are new to you. So a good example is if you're going to learn how to make spring rolls to eat, that's probably a fun activity, a delicious thing to make, but take the time to learn about the culture or where that food comes from as well. That can be that kind of healthy creative activity. Okay, so this idea takes us back to the title of this presentation, Making Connection Through Creativity. So how do we connect, not just with the topics that we're learning about, but with people that we are missing, people that we don't live with and that we don't get to see the way we'd like to? And I have several ideas for you. As I'm going through these ideas, I know there are tons more out there that you may have seen or noticed. I'd like you to think about those, and maybe you can share some of those ideas at the end when we have questions or comments. So the first idea is that you can create art or anything for your neighbors. This is an idea that I found online. And I've seen it in my own town here in Cedar City, where people are creating works of art and putting them up in their windows for people to see as they drive by. I think that's an awesome idea. And this is the son of my friend Brooke, who lives up in Logan. He plays the bagpipes, and he's been going around and doing concerts for his neighbors. I think he was playing Amazing Grace this day. And there were more pictures that his mother shared of people coming out and sitting on their porches and listening to him play. I have a friend who visited family in St. George, and she told me that a neighbor came outside and played the violin just for their family as they were sitting on the lawn, and it was wonderful. So you can be creative and share it with your neighbors in a really safe way. You can also create with your neighbors. This is a picture of people making music out on their balconies in Italy. I'm sure you guys all saw the news stories about that. But you can find ways to create together as a community, as a neighborhood, while social distancing. So in some of our smaller towns here in Utah, we're not necessarily all jammed together with close balconies like this. Our houses are a little bit spread apart, but there's still a lot of things you can do together. This is a really fun idea that I've heard of kind of all over the country. And there's a hashtag on Instagram called Chalk the Walk. And that's where neighborhoods are all going outside and creating sidewalk chalk art on their driveways or on their sidewalks. And then families will be able to walk around the neighborhood and kind of have a little bit of an art show just by looking at everybody's driveways. What I love about this is you can even all go out at the same time and chalk your driveway or your sidewalk without being too close together, but you still feel that feeling of togetherness. Oh, I wanted to go back to this. I don't have a picture of this, but I saw a fantastic idea online where one neighborhood, somebody bought a really large tarp. It was just a drop cloth from the hardware store, and they created a big outline of a rainbow, but you could do any picture that you wanted to. And then they passed it and paint from house to house, and each family in the neighborhood got to paint one of the stripes, and they painted the color and then filled it with little images or little drawings that represented their family or things that they'd been doing. So by the end, they had this beautiful rainbow full of pictures that represented each family in the neighborhood, and then they hung it outside on the street. So they didn't create it together at the same time, but they could drive by and think, oh, we all did this together, which I think is a fantastic idea. So the next one is, rather than creating art with, we did for your neighbors, with your neighbors. Now you can create with a friend at a distance. This is one I love, and this is my friend's daughter, Nora. She's about 12 years old. And you can see on her iPad, she has another friend there, and they're both drawing. My friend said that she and her daughter and her best friend get together all the time to draw, make art, cook together. They're always doing creative and crafting projects. And so when they couldn't see each other, rather than letting them get them down, they decided to do it at a distance. So they found, I think, a drawing tutorial online that they wanted to watch, and they both watched it on their own laptops, and then they had their phones or tablets, and they could see each other, and they would watch a little bit and pause it and draw together and talk about what they were doing. And my friend said, this was just the start. They've done this kind of thing every single day. And what's been fun is they've also created little works of art and do ring and run on each other's doorbells to give each other creative projects that they created. So even though they're not together, they're still feeling this really wonderful and healthy creativity as they're doing this together. This is another idea. Right now, the Chelsea Flower Show in London, which I guess is normally this amazing gardening festival that you can go and find out all these kinds of ideas about gardening and plants and flowers. Well, they had to cancel it, obviously, but they're doing an online version that's free, and you can just go and attend the garden show. And I think that would be so fun to do that with a friend at a distance, and then talk together about what you learned about plants and gardening, and maybe plan your own gardens together. There are tons of things online like that where you can watch or experiencing something creative together and talk about it from a distance. The next one is create with a group of friends at a distance. So rather than just one friend, you can get together as a group. I've seen so many examples of people having piano recitals at a distance, where there's a Zoom meeting or a Google Meet, and each person plays the piano in their own home and they share it together. This particular image was from a really great news story about the woman in the middle who's in her 90s, and these are her piano students, and she learned how to use technology so she could keep on teaching them, and so they could come together for their recitals, which I think is awesome. Now, along with that, you can do this just with your own family or a group of friends. I love the idea of having some kind of creative theme and saying, okay, today is Monday. On Saturday night, we're all going to get together for a concert, and everyone's going to play something with this theme. Or you can create in any area that you want and share what you've created at the end of the week. So you can have a multi-art form show or performance with a group in this way. And this is a really fun idea. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced social distancing birthdays. My friend Carrie Stroud, who lives, I think, in North Carolina, she had a birthday, and she sent birthday packages to several friends across the country. And she sent a cake recipe and a piñata and some balloons. And all of the friends that received the packages baked the cake on the same day and then celebrated in the same way with a cake and a piñata together, and then sent her photos and called and shared videos. So even though they were really far apart, they baked the same thing, which I think is awesome. And I've seen several things online where people do that and say, okay, I'm going to make this recipe today. Let's all make it, and then let's talk about it after. It's kind of like having a really great book group. Instead of just reading the same book, you're all doing the same kind of creative project and then sharing those ideas afterward. Okay, so the next thing you can do is join a creative community. This is something that I think has been really fun. Online, people are recreating works of art with their own bodies and their own props and clothing, and then sharing them. There are so many things that you can find right now with really great hashtags of ways that you can contribute your own creation online to another group. So here's another one. This is actually at the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art in Salt Lake City. They're doing something called Lawn Gnomes 2020, and they're encouraging people to make artwork that they're putting out in their yard. And that goes along with that idea of make art for your neighbors. But in this case, you can also hashtag it Lawn Gnomes 2020 and share it on Instagram. And then you can look at people from around the state and see what they have done. And you can feel that sense of togetherness because you're contributing to this online art show, which is awesome. Here's another fun idea. This is just a picture from the Instagram what's it called? Instagram page of an illustrator called Carson Ellis, and she lives in Portland, Oregon, and she pulls three words out of a hat every week, and then that's a drawing prompt that she gives to people, and then they create their drawing and send it to her, and she puts a lot of them online, and you can look at the hashtag as well and see all these people from around the world who've created works of art that all looked really different, but they're based on the same prompts. So the one this week was, is a baby, is made out of mud, and is wearing a helmet. And what comes in is awesome, and when you contribute, then you feel like you're a part of something bigger, which is fun. Here's another thing. This is an artist, Rebecca Green. She's an illustrator, and this is on Instagram as well. She did something called 7 Celebrations, where every single week they have a theme of something you can celebrate. You can celebrate beginnings, movement, our world. And she's invited people to create in any way they want, and then submit with the hashtag 7 Celebrations their interpretation of that theme. So there's so many really cool things that you can find like this, where you can make and then share back with a larger community. Here's another one. This is an arts organization. I can't remember the name of it, but I've included it in a document that I'll share at the end. But they have weekly art lessons that you can do. You can follow their step-by-step directions, adding your own creative ideas to it, and submit your artwork. There are just thousands of things like this online that you can find and follow at every level, from children like this one up to projects that will be suitable for adults. Okay, and the last big idea I have is that you can start your own creative community. We've seen all of these ideas. It doesn't take any money to say, okay guys, I have this idea, let's all create this kind of thing or artwork on this theme, and put it out not just to your own family and friends, but to a larger community, to the whole town you live in, or even farther than that, and have people start sharing online what they've created. I want to share a few more ideas. Obviously, there are just so many concerts that are free right now online, that people are creating music in their homes and sharing it. Watching those are awesome. Creating your own concert and sharing it is awesome. My husband is a writer, and he's participated in quite a few writing activities, especially readings. Right now, there are a lot of books that are coming out. You know, books come out, I think, every single week, and oftentimes our authors will go on book tours. Well, they'll do book readings in really great bookstores. All of those events are canceled, and that means they're all online. There are so many online, and if you don't live in a big city, now you have access to see that book reading online, and in a lot of cases, you can ask questions at the end, which is an opportunity you might not have had in the past. So before I go on to questions, I want to read this quote. This is by Robert L. Lynch. He's the president of Americans for the Arts. And he said, during my 30 years at Americans for the Arts, I've had the privilege to visit and learn about a different community nearly every week. While they differ vastly from one another, there is one common strength I have observed. The arts have made a profound impact on the health of each community. So as we're in this weird and maybe scary time where we might feel lonely, I would recommend using the arts and using creativity to improve your health, the health of your family, and the community at any level, whatever level you choose to do. So a lot of the information from that I shared today, have available here at this hashtag. This will just take you, or it's not a hashtag, QR code. It'll take you to a Google document, and that's going to be a live document that I'm going to continue adding to. But I have a lot of articles about creativity and the health benefits and mental health benefits of creativity. A lot of the resources that I talked to you about with those creative activities that are available online are there. And then I have a lot of ideas for you to look up and find on your own, so that you can find kind of your own path to creativity. And that's it. Do we have questions, Natalie?
Well, I'm going to give people a little bit of time to be writing in their questions, because you had invited people to share what they did to stay connected, right? Artistic ways. So just as a reminder, everybody can start putting in comments. I had just thought it was interesting when you talked about finding a way to be creative, that you're not overtaking someone else's creativity, right?
Yes.
With what did you call that artwork where they you lead someone through the artwork?
Yeah,
Remember
a
that?
guided
What,
drawing. Yeah.
guided drawing. Okay. I remember, I mean, this is like a long memory, and I don't know why I can remember things from so long ago, but when I was like 3 years old in nursery,
Well,
um, they had all these little cutout things, and you were supposed to make a flower, right? And they were telling me where to put the petals and everything, and I remember being so frustrated that I didn't get to put the petals where I wanted. And I just decided, maybe because I could remember being frustrated, and I just decided I'm just gonna do whatever I want. And maybe
that's
that's why I
awesome.
became an artist.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think someone who has a strong spirit will do what you did and say, okay, I'm going to do what I want. But a lot of people will say, I must not know what I'm doing. I must not be any good at this if the teacher or the adult is telling me to change my idea. And so they'll do the opposite of what you did, and they'll say, I'm not going to do this anymore because I clearly don't know what I'm supposed to do. And it's really kind of sad. So you're right, letting someone do what they want is awesome. So I have a story about that. I took a group of SUU students to the SUU preschool, and they were creating a really cool project that looked like African masks, and they were made out of paper, and they had a lot of pre-cut shapes for the children, and they were gluing on the shapes to make really cool geometric faces. And one girl wanted to put 3 or 4 eyes on, and this was a 3 or 4-year-old, and so they weren't even well spaced or anything. And the college student who was sitting next to her kept trying to help her, let's just move it over this way a little bit. Maybe we don't need all of these eyes. And the preschool teacher, who was amazing, her name is Cassie Ostrowski, walked over and just gently tapped her shoulder and said, it's her artwork. She's the artist. And that's what we need to remember is, the artist is the artist, whether it's your child, your spouse, your friend, they get to do their own way, and you get to do your own way.
Yes, that's a great example. Thank you. All right, just a sec. We've had some questions come up.
I think those
So,
might be comments.
yeah. Well, lots of people are saying great job. Could you share the QR code again? Would you
Yes.
mind putting that up one more time?
Yep, I'll do that right now. Oh, it's disabled. You know what? I will share it with you guys so that you can share it out.
Yeah, and we'll email it out to everyone. That's a great idea. All right, and there's one more question, just a second. What suggestions do you have for fostering a creative environment in our homes?
That is a good question. So I think having materials available, and they don't need to be expensive materials, and letting your family know that they're allowed to use them. And that could be saving some newspapers, it doesn't have to be really expensive paper or anything, but having materials available that your family knows they can use. Modeling creative activities. So sit down at your kitchen table. I think my husband doesn't love us doing art project at the kitchen table. We have other rooms where we can do it, but I feel like doing it right in front of everyone shows that it's fun, it matters to you, and that you love it. And then you can say, hey, do you want to join me? And then a big part of creativity is having the confidence to know that your ideas are okay. And so when you're working with a child or a spouse and they have an idea that's different than yours, it's so tempting to try to navigate them back to your idea. And so you can ask questions, use questions to encourage them to have their own ideas. And when they have an idea, say, oh my gosh, I'd love you to show me that. So modeling, having the materials available, and then letting them follow their own ideas. Another thing is, when I was an elementary teacher, so many children would say, I'm not allowed to use glue and scissors at my house because my mom says it's too messy. So you have to be okay with the mess, and have your children know the procedures for finishing when they're done, how to put it away, what's okay to use, and then how do they finish it so that it doesn't become a problem in your house.
And then they're learning 2 things, right? They're learning how to pick up and art.
Right. And I could go talk about that question for a long time, but I think those are maybe my biggest ideas.
That, and those are great take homes. Along with that, I had a question come up. My daughter, my youngest, she's in kindergarten, will go in and out of feeling secure about her own artwork. And like, we'll be drawing together. I'll sit down and I'll be like, hey, let's draw. Here's some cool markers. Let's test them, you know. And she'll want her artwork to look just like mine, and then get really frustrated that it doesn't. And I'm not trying to make her make mine. And I'll say, no, it looks great. It looks great. But she gets really frustrated. And I've said, you know, I have been drawing for a long time. and that happens. Like, you just keep at it and you'll be able to get to the point where you want to be. But I don't know if that's, I don't know. What would you say in a situation like that to keep creativity going?
Can you tell me her age?
She's 6.
Okay, yes. So my daughter is exactly the same way. In fact, when she was little, she would get so frustrated. She wouldn't want to start. And she was a real perfectionist about her artwork. And now she's graduating high school and she's going on to study illustration. And so I say, just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep giving her those opportunities and keep saying that. And I think she'll grow out of it. But I also, so when I work with a whole classroom of children and I have a project that I want to do with those kids, and I often will show an example to show how to do the processes that I'm teaching, but I don't want them to copy my example. So we do a thing in education called I do, we do, you do. So I do is I'm going to show you, and then we do is we do some of it together. So I start saying, for example, if I were drawing a silly robot face, maybe I could draw the face shape and maybe an eye or 2 eyes, and then I would say, what else do we need on this? And we kind of have co-creation where we're working together to add some things, and then you switch to you do, where you say, okay, now it's your turn. And not that they finish your example, but I always say to children, I know you have a lot of ideas that you weren't able to share here. I can't wait to see your ideas. I cannot wait to see what you do. And have those positive feelings of, I know you've got good stuff in you and you get to show me now. I don't think that that's too much pressure, like, oh no, I have to have a good idea, but you're saying, I know you have some, I know they're in there and I can't wait to see them. And I found, I just taught up to 5th grade. That did motivate all of them not to copy me or feel frustrated about not matching me, but to have their own ideas. But she'll grow out of it. That was the age my daughter was when she really had a hard time wanting to be better than she was.
Yeah, and I'm like, I want you to get there, but don't be frustrated. Keep trying.
Yeah.
I love that idea, though. You make a safe place for them to create, so they don't feel like they're going to be judged if they have a different idea than what you had.
Can I tell you another idea? You can,
Yeah.
I think sometimes take the pressure off the artwork. And it sounds like, I mean, you're a great mom and you're an artist. Take the pressure off by showing a whole variety of artists and artwork. If they're seeing your style a lot, she may want to mimic your style and not know a lot of, so I really love to follow contemporary artists and contemporary illustrators, or even look at other children's artwork. And so she gets a broader vision of the types of things she can create, because you might be a real high bar to try to reach, you know?
Yeah, but then being able to see that other artists have different styles and that's okay.
Yep.
That is a great idea. All right, well, I have a few questions coming in. You did, let me think here. All right, pointers for how to help somebody improve. I guess we kind of already talked about this, about making it their style and not yours.
Yeah,
like if you're trying to teach someone how to improve their art, but not make them think they have to meet your style, your standard, I guess.
Yeah, I think the more they see, and a lot of times we only see like museum quality work, and that's why I really love to follow artists on Instagram, because we're seeing their daily doodles, their daily sketchbooks. In fact, looking at, I'm sure there are several hashtags about sketchbooks on Instagram, and being able to see people's quicker sketches, not just their finished work, can show children, oh, I see, it's a progression. They didn't just sit down and do the final project. They may have had 5 or 6 steps or iterations before they got there. That can be helpful.
That is great. Where would you find those?
I look on Instagram and maybe look up hashtag sketchbook or stuff like that, and you'll find a lot of them. A lot of times people will show pages of their sketchbook in a little video or something. My daughter loves to watch those.
Huh. That would be really neat. Okay, well, I don't know if anyone else wanted to talk about the staying connected creatively, but here are a few ideas, and if you have them, go ahead and put them down. We'll read them. One of my friends did a mini art museum on her sidewalk. Like, you've probably seen them, right, where they put it like on a curb or something, and it's like
Oh,
a little
yeah.
tiny. Yeah. So she put out a box and added artwork, and then invited her neighbors to like make little miniature artwork, and they hung it in their box museum.
I love that.
And yeah, it was awesome. And everybody was like and she'd put out little Lego people to be looking at the museum.
That is
I thought
fun.
it was pretty fun. And then something I've always wanted to do but have not is I've always wanted to have a pumpkin growing contest. Have you ever
Oh,
heard of? You
no, but
give
that sounds
everybody,
fun.
you just share the same pumpkin seed with, the same type of seed with all your neighbors. And then they grow it through this season, and then in the fall you have like a contest, a jack-o'-lantern carving contest or something. I've
That's
always
awesome.
wanted to do that, but I was afraid I wouldn't be able to get my pumpkin to grow, so
Yeah.
I haven't done that one.
Yes.
Let me
I
see.
had an idea that just popped into my mind that I wanted to say earlier, that
Yeah.
I mentioned that there's so many concerts online right now. And I think that it can feel almost isolating to just watch one by yourself. And so I think that idea of calling up some people and saying, let's watch this and talk about it is awesome. And we had one, our family, we just turned one on, and it was my husband's office, and we all ended up laying on the floor listening to this music, and it was wonderful. So we connected in our house, but if we had also told other friends, then we could have called them and said, what do you think about this joke he made or this song he shared? Then it's better than just having it all alone,
Yeah. I really loved your ideas that you shared tonight. I was honestly feeling so happy inside, and I'm like, we really aren't so far apart. And you shared some amazing ideas. I think that's all the questions we have for tonight. So thank you so much for joining us and preparing such a great wealth of information. We
Awesome.
really appreciate that.
Thank you.